Welcome to the last free American town. Just remember, this show is live every Wednesday at 12 noon and repeats on Friday and on Monday, same time. Well, today is kind of interesting. One of the issues that we're looking at is light. You know, plants need light, and so do people. Now, I never thought people needed light, but we're now learning that it's very important that the proper lighting keep you healthy. Some people who work in fluorescent lighting all day or LED lighting, they sometimes can come up with rather interesting issues. And because of today's little scenario about plants, I just wanted to mention that if you have an iPad or any one of these electronic screens that have blue light, they've done studies that they now realize if you have those types of items, and let's say you're laying in bed at night and you like to kind of play games on your iPad, or you're doing some research before you think you're going to go to sleep, those screens, the light from those screens, destroy the melatonin in your body. Who'd have thunk it? And what happens once it destroys the melatonin, you just have trouble sleeping. And I can tell you that that's not the only thing that can affect your sleep, but that's one of many. So I would urge anyone out there who's listening who has sleep problems, stop using your computer in the evening, late at night, and don't use your iPad. Now, the other side to that coin is sometimes when you have trouble sleeping, you might think you need some sleeping pills to help you doze off. Maybe you think you should use something like, I don't know. What's that sleeping pill that people always use? Do you know, Sandy?
Somanex?
No? Nice try. There's one that's out there that is a hypnotic. People don't know it. It's called Ambien. And you hear people taking Ambien, they sleep really good. But you know what the side effect is? You wake up in the morning, you have no idea where you are or anything. You have no idea. If you wake up in the morning, and let's say you're not even at home, you're outside in the yard, or you're down at the corner 7-Eleven getting a coffee, and you have no idea how you got there. You're still in your robe. Ambien is a hypnotic drug that the feds say is safe to use. And I'll bet you 10 to 1, if you got a sleeping issue and you've been taking Ambien, that this is affecting you in that way. Better to not use your laptop at night than to go through what Ambien can do to you. Because believe me, you'll have no recollection of what's been taking place. And I know people who would wake up in the middle of the night. They'd go to the kitchen, they'd fry up some eggs and bacon and eat. They would see somebody else in the house and they would think everything is normal. And yet in the morning, they have no idea they even did that. And the people around them don't know that this is happening. You have a total mind blackout. So if I ever do anything for anyone, never ever take Ambien to help you sleep. Stay up late enough to be really tired. Turn on the TV and watch Family Guy. Anything to help you fall asleep other than taking Ambien. So, and I don't know why it's still on the market. It's a very dangerous drug. So, and one other thing here, this show comes to you from Pahrump, Nevada, which is known as the last free American town. And today we're going to talk about gardening. And I have with me today a guest who is the president of the Garden Club here in Pahrump. And her name is Sandy Nelson. Sandy has been, how long have you been the Garden Club president, Sandy?
3 years. 3 years.
I have to keep pointing at Sandy so she talks to the mic. Yeah, okay. So she's been there for 3 years. Okay, the phone number here, while we're having our discussions, if you want to call in, is 990-4900. Again, that's 990-4900. And it was really warm yesterday and today. Really nice.
Yeah.
What does that do to plants?
Kind of gives them a false sense of security. They think it's
Kind of like having a credit card?
Yeah. But it'll cool down again.
But what happens, Sandy, if it stays warm for a couple of weeks? I mean, the temperature now is 65 degrees today. So what happens if it stays warm for longer than 2 weeks? Don't these plants get faked out?
Yeah, if it's a long stretch of really nice weather, like we're going to go right into spring in the middle of winter, it'll cause early blooms. It'll cause all your plants, the perennials, to start coming up. And then if we do have a hard frost, it'll be a problem for all the plants. The plants will freeze when they're mid growth circles, when they're trying to grow. And it will kill a lot of the plants that would normally stay dormant.
So, okay, Frank wants you to be a little closer to the mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll put some lollipop juice out there. So. I have some plants at home. I like to grow plants that come back every year.
Perennials?
So I have, perennials. Thank you ever so much.
Sorry.
And so I have asparagus, which comes up every year. And one year I didn't water it all summer. I thought, well, my asparagus is going to be dead next year. I'll have to start over. And then the next year, when I went out to look at it in the spring, it was coming up again. That's a really tough plant.
Yes, they are. Yeah. You can the asparagus, when it's growing in the ground, it'll send down what they call its crown, and so there's a big mass of underneath the soil of lots of the shoots and roots and the root ball, and so that probably stayed moist enough to last throughout the hot summer.
You think even here in the desert?
Yeah, it's surprising that asparagus and artichokes, because of this, what they call a crown, and it can be massive, like
What describe a crown to me.
a crown is the root ball.
Yeah.
The root ball, and it's the start of new shoots. So it's like this mound of kind of a root ball along with the new what they call spears.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can get massive. It can probably get 3 feet in diameter underneath the ground. And so with all that huge mass, when it did get wet and watered, then it just stays in that mass because it's far enough under the ground and it won't dry out as much. It probably is a little better to water it a little bit even in the summer. But that's probably why it survived.
Well, I sure was surprised. And I have to tell you, I never realized this. You know, when you buy asparagus in the grocery store, it's kind of bitter. But when first time I went out and picked my asparagus, I ate it right there.
Yeah.
You know, I cut it and ate it. And it was sweet.
Yeah, when it's freshly picked. It's with all vegetables, and as soon as you get it fresh out of, like an hour old, and you go to the grocery store, you ask what happened, and it just starts breaking down. As soon as you harvest it, it starts to deteriorate pretty quickly.
What does it do? Does it actually use up the sugars that are in it, or how does that work, do you know?
I'm not 100% sure. It's like your apple, when it sits on the counter,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been picked, and it stays pretty good and crisp, and it just gets softer and softer and softer. And the same thing happens with all produce. So it's best if you can, the freshest that you can get it, the better tasting and the more nutrients.
For those who are new to Pahrump, being here is different, in my experience, to grow food than any place I've ever lived. And I've lived in several states. I've lived in New York, I've lived in Florida, Texas, California. I've been in Morocco and Spain and England in France, and you know, I've never been in a place to grow food like the things you have to do here.
It's challenging.
What, why is it so challenging here in this desert as compared to any place else?
It's a combination of things. One is the dirt. We have terrible dirt. Even some of our cactus and stuff can have trouble growing. So if you don't take the time to amend the soil, you're not going to have a lot of luck with your vegetables. And
well, talk about amending the soil. What does that mean?
it means that I've had pretty good luck where we take and we'll get a plot ready, we'll dig it up, and we'll take out about 2/3 of the desert dirt. And so you've only left yourself with about 1/3 of the desert dirt in your plot. And you dig down about maybe 8 inches. And then you'll put in compost, and you'll also put in like humus material, leaves. If you have access to compost, that's really good. So you kind of make a third of the desert soil and 1/3 of the compost soil, and then 1/3 of like what you can get at Star Nursery, their planting mix, and you kind of mix that all together. And what that does is it breaks up the desert soil, and it puts a lot of organic material in it, and so your root systems in all the plants have a much better chance of surviving. I've had better luck with the raised bed, where you really control the soil. But some members of the garden club have like 3 green thumbs, and they just amend the soil right in the dirt, and they built it up with the organic materials as well as a little bit of the desert soil, and they've changed their backyard environment. It's all green back there, and you throw a seed out there and it'll grow. It's pretty amazing.
You know, when I moved here, I was told that almost anything will grow here if you treated it right. Now, when I planted my non-producing palm trees, I put a lot of compost mixed in with the dirt. I mixed it and then I put it in the ground. And I did the same thing with my grapes and my other trees. I dug a big hole with a little backhoe. And then I mixed up the dirt with a lot of compost. And I was surprised how well that worked out.
Mm-hmm.
But doesn't that compost eventually get used up?
Yeah, and you have to add more compost. It's just like oil for your car. After you go 2,000 miles, you need to replace it. So after, especially with corn, I would not advise growing corn out here, but just as an example, when corn is planted, it uses up so much nitrogen in the soil. If you don't correct that soil for your next planting, you won't be able to grow anything. So each season, I always supplement my growing bed again and put in new compost, new nutrients, and leaves and stuff like that, so that you have really good dirt.
Maybe this is kind of a silly question being out here in the desert, but where do you get your compost from?
You can make it, and then also some of the nurseries will sell you compost. So you can go buy a truckload of compost at either Star Nursery or at Home Depot, or you can make it yourself. And the stuff you make yourself is probably better.
Well, at least you know what went into it.
Exactly. Although, from when I was at Star and at Home Depot, their compost looks pretty good. Anything's better than straight desert soil.
Well, desert soil. Well, they call the soil here poof dirt.
In some areas, it's poof dirt.
Because it's clay, and it powders up when you drive on it, and that's why we get some dust storms out here once in a while, I guess. But you have some things that you thought maybe we would talk about while we're on the air. You want to kind of look at your
Sure.
take a pic?
You'd asked me a little bit about asparagus, and so I have kind of how to grow it a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. I like asparagus. I never knew I would like asparagus until I grew it in the garden. It is so amazing to me how different the food tastes when you pick it fresh.
Yeah, it's
compared to going to the store.
Yeah.
So let's talk about asparagus. That's one of my favorite perennials that keeps coming up every year. 20 years it'll come up if you treat it right.
That's correct. Yeah.
Now, I didn't know there was a female and male asparagus.
I didn't either.
Oh, that makes two of us.
I did not see that in my research when I was looking around stuff, but it's a perennial crop, and so it will come up every year, and it usually lasts about 20 years. And you need a sunny, well-drained soil, and I found from my experience that a raised bed, so you can control the soil better, works pretty good. And you can grow it from seed, or you can grow it from what I mentioned before, this asparagus crown. If you grow it from seed, it takes about 6 weeks to germinate, and then you need to wait a year for it to start its crown. So you'd have this mass of the root ball and the spears in this crown section. And then you have to wait another year after you get your crown before you get your first crop. So you can get asparagus crowns from mail order garden places.
Mm-hmm.
You just order them in the spring. There are a few pests with asparagus. One of them is called an asparagus beetle, and they like to lay eggs down inside along the spears when they're first coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to get rid of them is just to pick them off with your thumb. You just kind of squish them off.
Do they actually have them here in Peru?
I've seen them.
Really?
Yeah.
I've had my asparagus for 4 or 5 years now, and I've never seen a bug on it.
Oh, you're lucky.
It was one of the things I liked.
Yeah.
And the other thing I liked is I read somewhere that you're supposed to let the asparagus go to fern during the winter, which is when you can get some seeds, because it strengthens the root structure.
That's correct.
Is that-
You as you're harvesting in the late fall, you want to let a few of those spears go to fern, and it not only does the seeds and do things, but it also acts like a bulb. And so when it goes to the fern, it actually starts putting nutrients, and I'm not sure the physiology of the plant, but it makes the crown more invigorated. But you want to remember that after you've had a good couple of freezes and it's turned brown, then you want to cut the fern off. But you want to wait until it's gotten green. It grows up probably about 3 feet, and then we let that happen. And then when we get a first frost, it's killed it a little bit, the frond. Then you want to cut it back down.
You know, I don't know. I tried to grow some asparagus from seed. I must have done something wrong because it never germinated. What could I possibly have done wrong? I took it, I had a little bit of compost, a little bit of soil, and I put the seed in there, and I kept it moist but not soaked, and it never germinated.
Did you have it in like a controlled environment, or was it just outside?
No, I built a little greenhouse.
Built a little
and
greenhouse.
It was a little, but you know, at the time I didn't know about this, but over at the Master Gardeners they had a little demonstration where they took seeds and they wet a paper towel. They put some seeds in the paper towel, and 3 days later they actually germinated.
Yeah, that is another way to do it.
But these never germinated either, so I don't.
Maybe you had bad seed.
Bad asparagus. bad asparagus.
Yeah, that's one way that you can tell. Like if you buy a packet of seeds,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to make sure that when you actually plant them, they're going to grow, is take 2 or 3 of them and put them in a damp, moist paper towel and see if they'll germinate. And if they don't, you might have a bad batch of seed.
Well, you know, I've had some. You read where they gotten some seeds in Egypt that they actually sprouted.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's because of the dry climate.
Yeah, seeds, depending on the particular plant, they can last a long time if they're kept in a controlled humidity or dryish, dark, and they were viable seeds to start with. If you have bad seed to start with, no matter how long you store them, they're still not going to germinate. But some seeds, 20, 30 years, 100 years.
So on the subject of seeds, how do you recommend they get stored?
I keep mine in a shoebox, so it's always nice and dark. And I try to leave it in not the warmest place in the summer, a cooler place in the summer, and a warmer place in the winter. I've had pretty good luck, but I just keep them in a shoebox. And in the wintertime, I bring them in the house, and then kind of leave them in just a nice place where it doesn't get too hot or too cold.
You know, when I did that little test with the paper towel that they showed us, the thing that bothered me was that as the root comes out of the seed, it has a tendency to grip into the paper towel, which meant that I really didn't have an idea, but I guess you just have to cut the paper towel, because if you don't, the seed's so delicate at that time that you wind up pulling the seed,
Pull the seed right
root
out.
apart. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't scream, but I know it doesn't feel good to the plant. So,
Yeah, paper towel is biodegradable, so it would just turn into the dirt.
are they really? I thought they were synthetic fibers.
Uh
I used to watch the master gardeners after they made coffee.
huh.
They would throw the coffee grounds out in the garden along with the filter. Well, I think the filter is a synthetic material.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'll have to research that. We'll get to that another day. So asparagus. I even put some of my asparagus in the refrigerator, and it didn't last very long. It seemed like the asparagus I bought in the store had a tendency to last longer than the stuff that came out of my garden.
Might be a different variety.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Geez, and I always think asparagus is just asparagus.
Oh no, there's probably at least 5 to 6 different varieties that I know of, and I don't know all of them.
Now, you at the garden club, you guys meet like what, once a month?
Once a month. Mm-hmm.
And what does it cost to become a member of the garden club?
A single person is $12 a year, excuse me, and then a joint is 21.
So, like, let's say, when does the dues come due?
They're due. We go from July to July, but if you wanted to join now, they would be $6 for an individual or $12 for a joint.
Well, all you cheapies out there, you can get in real cheap right now for $6. That's a good deal. Now, where did you learn about gardening? Is this just self-taught, or do you have some background in gardening?
Self-taught, and then I like to do research, and then I also have attended a few classes at the extension. I like to say the garden club is like the high school, but the extension is like college. So we have we're a group of just people who like to garden, and we go back and forth, and we have a lot of ideas. Some people have ideas that work. Some people tell us about things that didn't work, and we just kind of have a nice back and forth about different kinds of plants. We have people who like cactus. We have people who like trees. We have people who like vegetables. So it's a nice kind of overview of all kinds of gardening.
You know, somebody was telling me you occasionally have a seed exchange.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
Everybody, we announce it, and we basically ask everybody to bring their excess seeds in, and we set up a couple of tables. We have a table for flowers, and we have a table for vegetables, and everybody kind of labels them, and then we just go, okay, everybody puts up their seeds, and they just kind of swap seeds around.
So,
Pretty simple.
are these what they call those heirloom seeds? Are they heirloom seeds, or what are they?
It's what everybody brings in. Typically, from what I've seen of the seeds, it's what will grow here. So there might be 1 or 2 heirlooms, but a lot of it are just your everyday, like tomato seeds. They're really not the heirlooms. They're like the heat wave and the little grape tomatoes that grow well out here. They're sweet 100s. And then there's squashes and just generic stuff. There's not a lot of heirloom.
So right now this is basically it's winter time.
Yes.
I missed fall planting,
Mm-hmm.
but now we're coming in a month or two. We'll be in a season where we can actually plant, or maybe even now. Can we plant
You
any?
can plant your seeds now and leave them either if you have a little greenhouse or on a sunny windowsill, and so you'll have seedlings when it's time to plant if you want to plant some seeds now.
Somewhere I've read that if you have plants in a pot, like a seedling,
Mm-hmm.
and then you transplant it into the ground, that they don't do as well as if you just put the seeds in the ground and let them grow. Is that true, or am I missing something?
What I typically like to do is I'll have my seedlings, and I have a greenhouse, and so they've been in a nursery, and well protected and well babied. And what I do before I plant them in the ground is I'll put them on my back patio, and so it's not as nice of an environment as what was in my greenhouse, but it's still not as harsh as what is out in my garden. And so I take a couple of days. It's called hardening, and so the little seedlings get like a little taste of what's to come, and they harden up a little bit, and then I've had pretty good luck.
So it's kind of like taking your kid and throwing him outside in the cold for an hour every day so he gets used to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I've planted.
Those were the days.
Yeah, I've planted some of my flower seedlings already, and in about 2 more weeks I'm going to start planting my tomatoes and my squash in the greenhouse.
So basically, right now, somebody ought to be thinking about getting ready for their garden that's coming.
Right, making plans and figuring out what you'd like to grow. This is the perfect time to do it.
You know, you brought up tomatoes, and you know when you go to the store and you buy tomatoes, they've kind of lost their flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading something in the newspaper this morning that the scientists recognize that's a problem. There's 26 different ingredients or chemicals in a tomato that give it good flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what they were saying, these scientists have now found out what those ingredients are, and they're looking to create, not through genetic engineering, but through the way they normally would do it. You know,
Hybridizing.
yeah, and that they're trying to bring back the hardiness of the tomatoes they have now with the flavor of the tomatoes that you could grow in your garden.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized how good they were out of the garden.
Yeah.
You know, until somebody tasted those, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get a little story. My son was working at one point for the Cordon Bleu Culinary School in Vegas, and he was an admissions rep. And that year we had a bumper crop of tomatoes. We're just the Italian Romas, you know. So, I mean, we had multiples of 5-gallon buckets.
Wow.
We were making tomato sauce and freezing it. So he took half a bucket into school one day, and there were people there who had never tasted. He let everybody have a tomato to taste from our garden because he was so proud of what we had done. And the chefs came in and tasted the tomatoes and wanted to buy our tomatoes out of our garden because it was so much better. We've got a built-in audience in Vegas for food crops.
Uh-huh.
Well, at least for my tomatoes. I can't speak for anybody else's. So, and there have been other people out here in Pahrump that were growing lettuce and other rapid growth vegetables, and they would never let them grow to be a head. They would just get them when they were young.
Really.
And I know these women were selling them to the casinos in Vegas, to the chefs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're going to be a millionaire doing that, but
Probably not.
probably not. But maybe you make friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you make enough to get seed for next year.
Yes. Well, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned artichokes as another kind of cool weather crop. On the back side of my house, where the sun comes up in the morning, I had artichokes planted out in the garden, which is about 80 feet away from the back of my house. And one day I walked out there as it was getting cool, and there was an artichoke plant. And it surprised me. Well, there's now two. I didn't plant those. I guess a bird or something must have. So I want to talk about artichokes when we come back.
Okay.
We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, it's going to be artichoke time.